Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all today. Tonight's program, Ken Zuckerman, live in concert, promises to be a memorable celebration of classical music, artistry, innovation, and conversation. We are thrilled to have with us a legendary artist, Grammy-nominated Sarod Maestro Ken Zuckerman, whose journey in music is as inspiring as it is profound. Before his much anticipated Sarod recital, we are privileged to witness an exclusive interview with Kenji, conducted by another esteemed Sarod expert, Anupam Joshi. So sit back and get ready to embark on a journey into the mesmerizing world of Indian classical music.
Good evening, everyone. Most part of the interview will be conducted in English, but before that, I would like to just start a little bit in Marathi. या ग्रेट सरोद प्लेयर्सची माझी ओळख कशी झाली याविषयी 1-2 वाक्य बोलणार आणि त्यानंतर मी प्रश्नांना सुरुवात करीन. साल 2002 सवाई गंधर्वमध्ये पंडितजींचा प्रोग्राम होता आणि त्याच्या आधी एक खाजगी बैठक वाजवण्यासाठी ते पुण्यात होते आणि तेव्हा मी सरोदचे धडे घ्यायला सुरुवातच केली होती, पण मी मैहर घराण्याचा भयंकर मोठा भक्त असल्यामुळे त्या घराण्याच्या ऑथेंटिक वादकांकडेच मला शिक्षण घेण्याची इच्छा नेहमी होती. म्हणून तेव्हा मी एका सतार वादक पंडित सुधीर फडके यांच्याकडे शिकत असत आणि ते सतार आणि सरोद ह्याच्यामध्ये खूप तफावत चालत होती. आणि एक दिवस जेव्हा मी त्यांना ऐकलं, अली अकबर खाँसाहेबांचं खरा जो इसेन्स आहे तो त्यांनी त्यांच्या वादनात कसा आत्मसात केला आहे हे आपण थोड्या वेळात ऐकालच. पण ते वाजवणं ऐकून मी इतका प्रभावित झालो. ती मैफल संपली जवळजवळ रात्री 11 वाजता आणि पंडितजींना त्यापुढे नंतर सवाईचा कार्यक्रम होता आणि मी त्यांना काही बोलूच शकलो नाही की फक्त पाया पडलो. पण एक खूप इच्छा होती त्यांच्याबरोबर थोडासा वेळ घालवण्याची. सवाईचा कार्यक्रम झाल्यानंतर मात्र मी त्यांना म्हटलं की असं असं आहे आणि मी शिकतो, मला यायची इच्छा आहे. तर ते म्हणाले हो, पण उद्या संध्याकाळी माझी स्वित्झर्लंडची फ्लाईट आहे, मी आत्ता निघालो आहे, तू उद्या सकाळी 8ला मुंबईला येऊ शकलास तर बघ, मी सन अँड सँडमध्ये आहे जुहूला. आणि त्या काळी बाकी इतर काहीच माहिती नसताना सरोद घेतलं आणि एका कर्नाटक ट्रान्सपोर्टच्या बसमध्ये जे कोथिंबीर घेऊन चालली होती ती एकच बस आम्हाला मिळाली. तर कोथिंबीरींच्या गड्ड्यांवरती पोत्यांवरती आम्ही सरोद असे बसून कसे बसे तिथे गेलो. पूर्ण अवतारात असल्यामुळे त्या सन अँड सँडमध्ये आपल्याला चुकल्यासारखं वाटलं की हे काय, कुठे चाललो आहे आपण. आणि पण त्यांच्यासमोर बसलो आणि त्यांनी इतक्या प्रेमाने भैरवी थाट घेऊन छोटे छोटे चेंजेस सांगून सरोदमय जास्त कसं वादन होईल ह्याचे धडे मला दिले. आणि मी त्यांना राहवलं नाही, त्यामुळे शेवटी विचारलं की तुम्ही इतकं इझिली कसं काय हे मला सांगताय, देताय. आम्ही ऐकलं आहे की गुरु खूप क्लिष्ट असतात आणि देत नाहीत संगीत. तर त्यांनी एकच वाक्य तेव्हा मला सांगितलं की मी ज्यांच्याकडे शिकलो, बाबा अली अकबर खाँसाहेब, त्यांनी आम्हाला एकच ध्यास सांगितला आहे की द्या, दोन्ही हाताने. आणि आजही इतके वर्ष, जवळजवळ 20 वर्ष ओळख आहे, जेव्हाही आम्ही भेटतो तेव्हा ते मुक्त हस्ताने शिकवण्यासाठीच खूप तत्पर असतात. आणि ती मैहर घराण्याचं वादन नक्की काय हे आता त्यांच्या वादनातनं आपल्याला कळेलच, पण त्याच्याशी निगडीत मी काही प्रश्न विचारणार आहे. नाव आय विल शिफ्ट टू इंग्लिश. सो माय rendezvous with Panditji began around 24 years back, I think. Yeah, roughly that. And ever since that, it's always been a a beautiful relationship. He's been mentoring me, not only in Sarod, but so many other aspects of music. So today's conversation will be a little, let's say, generic information oriented too, but later on, I will not be able to control myself into getting into some technical intricacies of the Sarod and his style of playing and what he got from his master. So to begin with, if you're okay, I'll shoot my first question.
Great.
Okay,
Proceed.
great. So tell us a little bit about your early life. By that I mean your pre-Sarod life. What was your connection with music and the journey that led you towards Sarod? How was it?
First of all, thanks so much for inviting me to perform here this evening and to have an engaging conversation with Anupam, who I've had a long relationship with. And can you all hear? Is this okay? Yes. Very good. Yeah. We've had a musical relationship, also a relationship of warm friendship and mutual admiration and respect. So it's a pleasure to be here to have a conversation about music. Yeah, these things don't just start like that. There's a background here, and that brings me to the first question that he posed. What my life was like pre-Sarod. I grew up very much involved with music in a very intuitive way. I was always singing as a kid. I listened to a lot of music even before I picked up an instrument, and I didn't even realize it sometimes. At school, I was sitting there, and I would feel the teacher tapping me on the shoulder and said, "Kenny, stop singing." You know, I didn't realize I was singing, but I was constantly singing or humming. I didn't think it was audible to others, but I guess it was. So my real first introduction to music was through singing, listening to recordings that my parents would have on the phonograph for me, some of them children's songs, some of them pop songs, and gradually I began just listening to all kinds of music, folk music, country music, rock and roll. Eventually, the heroes that came to America from England, the Beatles, all of those groups, the stars like Bob Dylan and what he did with folk music. I couldn't get enough, and I actually, when my father came home with a tape recorder once, which was going to be his, and I saw what it could do, he would also record programs off the radio, and I was watching, very curious, thinking, I can do that too, and the next thing was I was slowly stealing the tape recorder from him. Every night I would put on tapes and to the FM stations that were playing all kinds of music, early rock and roll and folk music, and I would have my hand on the record button, and as soon as I heard a tune that I thought I might like, I would hit the record. So I had these big collections on the tape recorder that were feeding my curiosity about music. And in terms of instruments, even though I love to sing, I was curious about instruments, and I remember being at school one day, and the teacher played some piano music for me, and it was so exciting. I'd never heard anything like that before, and I ran home and said, "Mom, I want to play piano," and which wasn't too difficult because my older sister was also taking piano lessons. So she said, "Okay, we'll start you off with your sister's piano teacher." And the problem is that I was a little guy. I didn't have a spurt in my growth until much later than most kids, and so I would be sitting on the bench, and because my feet wouldn't even reach the floor, I was putting my feet on the pedals of the piano to just brace myself, and I was and of course the pedals were moving, and I'd be pushing down on the pedals. And the teacher would get so annoyed. She said, "Get your feet off the pedals, young man." And I was so kind of upset and angry about being treated this way that within a couple of weeks, I said, "That's it. I don't want to play piano."
How old were you then?
I think I must have been like 8.
8.
Yeah, 8 years old. So that was it for the piano. But my mother thought, well, maybe we can find something else for him. And then she suggested the guitar, which would be easier for me to hold on my lap. So then I started playing guitar, and I took to the guitar immediately because I could hold on to it. I could see very clearly the sounds I was producing. And that really started me off on my path to learning an instrument and also learning music. And from the beginning, I would look at the music paper that my teacher would give me, but I was more interested in just improvising, just like looking around on the instrument, trying to figure out things. I would listen to a pop song I had heard and try to figure out the chords to the pop song. So my ear was developing quickly, and I loved to just sit in the room for hours figuring out melodies. And I'd try something and liked it, then I'd build on something else, and when I really thought it was coming well, then I would bang on my sister's door and say, "Listen to this." And so she would listen. She said, "It's good. Keep going."
Lovely. Nice. From guitar to Sarod, I think there was a step in middle with the sitar also. So how did you take to Indian music, and what was that like?
I think I remember one time in high school, someone brought a sitar into the classroom. They had no idea how to play it. I think one of the parents gave it as a gift, and I looked at it and thought, "That's really strange. What the heck is that?" And didn't think too much about it. But a few years later, when I went to college and started taking courses and taking advantage of the program offerings at the college, one evening there was an announcement for a concert, and it was a concert of Indian music. And up to then, at that time, I had not really directly heard any Indian music. Maybe some kids in the dormitory were putting it on sometimes, but I thought, gee, I wonder about that music, and it was happening right there on the campus, and all I had to do was go. And first, of course, I checked to see if there were any good movies playing that night, and there were not. So I thought, all right, I'll go to this concert. And who was it other than the great Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, accompanied by Shankar Ghosh, real stars of Indian music who had somehow been invited by some musicians from who were part of a string quartet at this college, and they had heard about them and invited them to perform. So I went to the concert, and it began, and there was this small yeah, I guess we can call him bald man sitting with this instrument, and next to him was a tabla player and also a tanpura player. And so I couldn't really understand what he was saying because he had kind of a thick accent, but he started playing, and before I knew it, he would play something, and then both at the same time, the tanpura player and the tabla player, both of them would start shaking their head like this. And I thought, wow, that's how impolite. I mean, maybe he made a mistake, but you shouldn't be showing that to the audience, you know. And it kept happening. He would play something and they would just shake their heads. That was right from the beginning. And then gradually what happened was he was playing the alap. They were very moved, of course. I found out later that was a good sign. But the alap was very engaging, but then at some point I fell asleep. You know, and when I woke up again, because it was very peaceful, and when I woke up again, I saw this man playing with such force and vigor and virtuosity than I'd ever seen a human being play. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And after the concert, he told everyone that he had just opened a college of Indian music in California, and everyone was invited to come and study at the school. It's open to students of all levels, complete beginners, etc. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I mean, but who would want to do that? And you know, I guess anyway, that's California. That's where all the crazy stuff is going on. But luckily, a good friend of mine who I was doing a lot of guitar playing with, he said, Ken, come on, that was great stuff. Let's go out to California this summer and just study for a summer. And so I went out for the summer and immediately fell in love with Indian music, the way of teaching that Ali Akbar Khan Sahib was giving us, also largely through singing, which I always loved to do from childhood. And so within that summer session, I was totally sold. You know, if you would have been able to sign your life away, I would have said, "Give me it. I'll sign the paper." You know, and that's how it started. And then of course my parents were, when they saw my enthusiasm, and I was thinking to drop out of college for that. They begged me, you know, at least finish 1 year. You know, and so luckily I was able then to integrate my studies of Indian music with my college BA curriculum. So I eventually did my Bachelor of Music recital on not only the sarod, but also the sitar, because I had started my studies of Indian music on the sitar, plus the guitar, plus another instrument I had picked up along the way, which is called the lute. And so my senior recital was on these 4 different instruments and very different kinds of music. And then I moved to California and thought, now I'll spend the rest of my life at Ali Akbar Khan Sahib's Ali Akbar College of Music. And it didn't quite work out like that, although my association with Khan Sahib lasted for almost 40 years until he passed away. And I remained devoted to his teachings and his style of playing.
Lovely. And how was it to learn with Khan Sahib? Like, I believe that there are a lot of things in Indian classical music which are not as well defined, not as well documented as maybe a Western staff notation or a composition or a concerto would be. So, what were your feelings, and how did you want some more jetpacks to cope with that, or was it Khan Sahib all the way?
Yeah, well, right from the start, I was, let's say, not a typical musician playing guitar. I was, as I mentioned, I was into improvising, and then gradually I started composing just on my own, and I would listen to records to figure out how to play them. So I was getting a very strong ear training that way, and actually the basic ear training, which is the way that Indian musicians are taught. It's you're learning by listening, not by looking. So I never wanted to read notation. I found it just bothersome, and sometimes my mother would come to my guitar lesson or ask the teacher, "How's he doing?" And he said, "Well, he's doing great on the guitar, but he's not practicing what I'm giving him." So it was a pleasure actually for me to come into the first classes with Kansab, and he was singing, and we just had to follow him, and I was good at that because that's how I was learning music, and so from the first session I took to that kind of learning, and of course his advanced students were writing the compositions on the blackboard as he taught, but I was just listening to his voice.
Nice, lovely. And what would you say about Kansab as a musician, his artistry and his approach to his music? How did it shape your own thought of approaching music?
Well, right from the beginning, I was just so impressed with his creativity, because he would compose just for us right on the spot and change things and develop things, and we could see it was not something that he was just some memorized composition he had done. His whole process of making music was always a fresh reenactment, recreation of what his father had taught him for so many years. So I really appreciated that also, because that was what I was searching for in my music.
Okay. And what you would say was his most valuable lesson to you as a teacher, as a musician, as a human?
Boy, now you're getting tough on me. Well, I think what he taught us most of all was to embrace this question of learning by listening, and that was the guiding light of the music. And so whatever he was doing, forget about writing it down. Just listen and stay with it. If people would be in class and they would be kind of just confused by the complexity and also the beauty of what he was producing, and they'd say, "But we don't get that. It's too much," and he would just say, "Look, listen louder."
Wow. Yeah. Listen louder.
Listen louder, yeah.
Amazing. Great. So let's come back to your journey of music. Now, post Sarod, maybe year-wise or number of years-wise, how were your next steps? What were your next steps? How did you progress?
After formal training, you mean, with Kansab?
Yeah, later. Even now in your own career, like your first performance, where was it? How was it?
Well, for years I actually just tried to develop my my skills at improvising and composing, but always totally guided by his example, and so I realized that I had to go beyond a composition, but I had to base what I was trying to do on his teachings. And sometimes he would, and he appreciated that I was being creative with the music, and not all of the students could do that, but that was my nature as a musician. And so sometimes he would say to me, "Oh, Ken, I heard your performance of Koshi Kanra. I got the recording of it," and I thought, "Oh God, what's he going to say?" And he said, "You didn't play my gut." I said, "I know, Baba. I tried to make one up myself." He said, "It's good, but the last part of it, you have to finish that line like this." And then he sang it to me. I said,
Wow.
"Thank you."
How
So
nice.
that's the kind of guidance that he was ready to give, also, because he was aware that if people had the that wish and the capacity to also bring something from themselves to the music, he was fine with that. He was not, he wasn't like pedantic that no, you have to do it my way or no way.
Lovely. How nice. So when was your first performance? How long after you started learning was it?
Well, I guess the first one was they started to have little student recitals at the Ali Akbar College to give students a chance to just play in front of people, and that's the first time I played for people on that level, and the response was very enthusiastic.
What did you play?
Actually, the very first recital was Jana Sanmohini.
Janasa Mohini. Oh.
Yeah, a gut that Indranil, the sitar
Indranil
player,
Bhattacharya.
yeah, that he had taught the students, and one of them taught it to me.
Uh-huh.
And then I played that. There was first a gut in Rupak Tal, and then I actually composed a fast gut in Teen Tal, and
Nice.
I was kind of a bit maybe bold, or it's your first recital and you're playing your compositions already. But everybody really liked it. They responded well to it, and I thought, okay, I can do that.
Nice. And now you have collaborated a lot with world musicians of different genres. Now, during the collaboration, how do you approach it? Like, as you being a world musician or you being a sarod player, Indian classical musician, and what is that process like in your head?
That's a delicate path to follow, because naturally I was totally into Kansab's music. That was my total guide. But I could see also that he was composing in other genres. When the whole this playful way of getting into fusion music. What was the ensemble that he played with? Was it Rainbow or something, or
Garden of Dreams?
Well, that was an album, but he first, I think, got very popular playing with a jazz saxophonist by the name of John Handy.
John Handy, yeah.
Yeah. And I forget the name of the group, but it was around the same time that John McLaughlin and Zakir were forming Shakti. So many of the big ustads were curious in experimenting in this way. The Beatles had also inspired some of this. So it was a natural, playful curiosity that people were engaging in.
And later in life, when you individually have collaborated with other genres of music, any such memorable collaboration that you have done, and what is the memory of it?
I was approached once by an ensemble working in Germany, and they were all orchestra musicians, but a small group of them wanted to learn other kinds of music. They were fascinated by Indian music, so they actually hired me to compose music that they could play together, and also that it would include some sections where they could improvise. And so I made this whole composition in various parts, and I think there were about like 12 musicians. There was a whole violin quartet, 2 violins, viola, cello. There was a bass player. There was a French horn, and so it was a unique sound, and I called this composition modal tapestry. Okay, so it was all based on what is known as modal music, which Indian music falls within this category too. Modal by the meaning that these are based on monophonic modes, like the ragas are also monophonic modes, and we had monophonic modes that were very popular in the medieval period of Western music. So that was my connection there, because I also studied medieval music and was fascinated by it and how close it was in some ways to Indian music. So that composition and it was made into a recording also. It got a lot of attention, and that was sort of my dip into the fusion activity, which some people like to call confusion. And it was fun. But then, at one time I remember having a conversation with Zakir about it, and he said, "Well, Ken, it's fine, but you have to decide: do you want to be an Indian musician, or you want to be a fusion music musician? That you have to decide what you want to do."
Lovely. How nice. And you have also performed as a sarod player on some of the biggest stages in the world. Any such memorable concert, something that meant a lot to you performing at, other than at the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music in front of Baba?
Yeah, I played in some very big halls, especially with some of these fusion groups that I was playing with all over the world, actually, in huge halls, Carnegie Hall and in Paris, the Théâtre de la Ville. It's one of the biggest performance halls there. So I had the experience of playing in these great arenas. But after some years of doing this kind of work, I also grew tired of it, because you don't have as much freedom as you have in the real solo Indian music genre to build up a raga from the start, and that every time is different. When you're playing with a big ensemble, you're bound by certain conscriptions, and this at some point I grew tired of that, and I felt, no, I just want to immerse myself in the world of raga with a tabla maestro, and that's the most meaningful way for me to be in the moment with Indian music.
Yeah. So before we get to the next half of the recital of the interview, I would request Ken sir to have a small recital for us, and then after we listen to him play, then I would get into a little technical details of the questions and sarod itself. So okay. Please.
Okay. So we'll play for you a short piece in a traditional Indian raga, although it's a raga that also mixes some elements. So when I say that the raga is called Bhageshri Kanra, then we can assume that it's going to be a mixture somehow of Rag Bhageshri, which is a very well-known, popular raga, and something that has to do with the Kanara family. And so this raga, it is traditional. It's performed by singers, instrumentalists in India, and it's Ali Akbar Khan Sahib used to like to play this raga quite a bit. So you'll hear that. So if you're noticing some Kanara creeping into the Bhageshri, or Bhagyashree creeping into the Kanra, then we're on the right track.
It was back in 2000 when I first heard Panditji play. It was Rag Bhageshri Kannada even then. And it's getting better and more difficult just by looking at and trying to analyze the intricacies that have been imbibed. It's amazing. So what is the Mahar Sarod? Not as an instrument, but the playing. How is it different from the other Gharana Sarods when it comes to the playing part?
Well, I mean, I think the easiest would be to go back to what was going on when Kansab was a kid, before he was even learning, and you know, people were saying, oh, "Okay, what will you teach your son?" And because Baba Alauddin Kansab played so many instruments, you know, you pick them, you know, violin, sarod, sorcering harp. I mean, all of them he could play, he mastered. And so it was a natural question, what will your son play? And he said, he'll play sarod, but he'll play all the instruments of India on the sarod. So it meant that he would teach Kansab how to play all these different styles that he learned, all the way going, you know, back to the Drupad Alapjorjala style, you know, to the vocal styles that were heavily influenced in his training and his later teaching. So he was going to have Kansab play the sarod in such a way that it could emulate all the instruments, and that's part of the reason why when Kansab came onto the performance stage, people were just flabbergasted. They didn't know what to make of it. It was so incredibly virtuosic and unique in so many different ways. If you listen to early sarod recordings, you'll hear it. It's something very, you know, I mean, it's beautiful for what it is, but it's a very small scope of presentation in terms of using the elements of the instrument. It's very much bowl oriented, and the mean is not so much there. So he made Kansab play the violin on the sarod. He made him have that effect. He made all of the techniques that Baba Alauddin Kansab had learned in his lifetime, he put into Kansab's sarod playing, and that's what caused the total astonishment in the Indian music community, and from then on, people wanted to play the sarod like Kansab, because it had so much wealth and depth of expression from the deep mean of the alap all the way to the fastest jalas and virtuosic bowls that you could ever imagine. So that was what Alauddin Kansab, I'd say, in a way, did for his son. But you also have to say what he did to his son, because he was a taskmaster, and poor 6-year-old Ali Akbar had no freedom from the time he was 6 until he finally ran away from home when he was about 16. You know, to get away from it, because it was relentless, and his father had collected such a wealth of material in his long journeys all over India, trying to get whatever he could from every guru, until each one would say, "I don't have anything else. Sorry, you'll have to go to the next, please." And so he sacrificed a lot to get what he got on all the instruments that he played, and he decided that Kansab was going to do it all using one instrument. And it was a huge achievement, and it was a hugely difficult upbringing for Kansab, because he was just, I mean, there were others, you know, he told us sometimes in a very kind of, you know, almost agonizing way, that he said, Yeah, there were others who studied with my father. There was Ravi Shankar. He stayed a few years. There was Nikhil Banerjee. He stayed a few years. He said, but only me. I was there the whole time. And he tells that in a typical, in a day that was just filled with practice, and he had absolutely no freedom. The only freedom he had was when they sent him to school, and that was his freedom. And as soon as school was finished, he was escorted by the bodyguard back home, and then his father was waiting for him. All right, let's go. More, until he literally he couldn't take it anymore. So he got what he got at a cost, but at a benefit to the whole music world, because it wasn't just Kansab. Kansab changed the way the Sarod was played in India forever.
Mm-hmm. So, learning with Kansab, and I'm sure you must have come across listening to some other musicians also, especially Sarod players. So out of that, what, if you could play and also show if you would like to, which aspects do you think make the Mahar Alap playing, or some of the techniques that are very unique to our gharana? Would you be able to tell us in a nutshell?
It's difficult to easily decipher, because Kansab used so many techniques in his alap also that each one sounded different, and so you listen, and I have listened to alaps in the same raga, and sometimes the results are the raga. The raga is clear, but the expression, because he had all these techniques and compositional ideas that were at his fingertips, and he could just fly. So each one would sound not like a different raga, but a very different performance. Most of the artists, they when they're going to play a raga, it has a certain way of movement and certain techniques that are brought out. But Kansab had so much creative potential because of everything his father gave him, and also the things that his father gave him that related to vocal music, that related to bowed players, that related to every other kind of instrument that he had learned, that made him, and he said it sometimes made him crazy, because he literally had too much information and too much creativity, and sometimes he would get aggressive with it too. Uh-huh. It could happen sometimes. Yeah. But mostly he was just a consummate artist that everyone, all the Sarod players wanted to copy, and they could copy techniques on the Sarod, but they couldn't copy his inspiration, his ability to create something unique in the moment. Mm-hmm. And also his ability to make the raga sing in a special way with one note. I said, Kansab only needs one note to show the beauty, the strength, and the depth of the raga. It's that touch that it's not like a whole you can analyze all the bowl patterns and all the different kinds of means that are used in the techniques, but when it comes down to it, one sound and everybody knows who it is. Only Kansab can produce that.
So when we listen to the Mahar Gharana instrumentalists, we all come across some strange sounding words like a zamzama. What is a zamzama?
Zamzama, as I understand it, is a double krintan.
What is a krintan?
I think he's teasing me now.
No, I'm sure a lot of people here are students of music, and Pune has a very rich culture of listening to vocal music, and we would, with just 1 year, tell you what Gharana is singing and what Bandish is it, etc. But the instrumental music, what I feel, needs a little bit more of exposure in terms of how to listen to an instrumental recital. So what does the player mean when he says he's representing a Maihar Gharana or a Sainiya Gharana or a Shahjahanpur Gharana?
Yeah.
So out of this, there's the Zamzama word, or when I kind of try to tell in a nutshell, there's Krintan, there's Zamzama. So,
okay, so Krintan is when you, with one stroke, you play two notes. Pull off. That's a Krintan. Or it can go the other way. Yeah, it's basically producing two notes with one pluck. And Zamzama is two Krintans jammed together. There's a combination between a Zamzama, that's two on one. So those kind of patterns.
Thank you so much. Nice. And we also come across this term as something known as the Tok Jhala. So they call it the Sida Jhala and the Ulta Jhala, which is the straight one and the reverse one. So what is the difference between?
Sida Jhala, as I understand it, is made of the bowls, one Da stroke and three Chikari strings. Tok Jhala is so just the opposite. So otherwise, and all the variations. Yeah, every variation that you can think of there.
That's great. Thank you. You may keep the Sarod down.
Huh?
You may keep the Sarod down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please sit down.
So my next section is you as a teacher. So first of all, tell us the story behind Ali Akbar Khan College of Music, Switzerland, Basel, that is. How did it come into existence, and what inspired you to teach in the very first place?
I've had a love for teaching since I was a kid, and I think maybe 3 months after I started taking guitar lessons, my mother came and said, "Kenny, that 6-year-old across the street wants to learn guitar. Can you show her how to play guitar?" And I said, "I don't know." I didn't have any. I had some of my booklets. But, the little girl came over, and I said, "Okay, put your first finger here, now play that note," And so we got going, and I realized I had an enjoyment to show someone how to make music at a very basic level. And that only increased as the years went on, because I think it's one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody is to show them how to do music. This is think about that transmission, and what's involved and what it results in. It's not just I show you how to put a nail in the wood with a hammer. That's also wonderful. We wouldn't go far in our civilization without people who know how to do that. But to show someone how to play music on an instrument or even sing, because I sing a lot when I'm teaching, because Kansab sang a lot when he was teaching us, and I've always loved to sing. So yeah.
Yeah, about the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music, Basel.
Well, in Basel, it was kind of a natural evolution because when I moved to Switzerland first, the reason was, and Kansab was wondering, why is he going to Switzerland? You know, and it's a long and complicated story because I wanted to study some advanced training in medieval music, which maybe I mentioned before, that I had learned this music and found that it was very similar to Indian music in some ways. So when I went to Switzerland, which was supposed to be for 1 year, it was to do advanced graduate work in medieval music, which sounded a lot like Indian music, you know. And after being there 2 years as a student, they offered me a job to teach at this school, to teach improvisation in medieval music. So I said, yes, I'll do it. I'd love to do it. But at that point, I got a little bit courageous. I said, but I want to teach Indian music too. And so the director of the music conservatory said, oh, yeah, it might be a clever moment to do that. Mm-hmm. And so he gave me a few classes of Indian music to teach, and the whole thing grew from there. And I started inviting Kansab to come to Basel, Switzerland, to give concerts, because he was starting to tour more in Europe. And then we would have workshops, and he would teach the students. And then there were so many students getting interested during the year that I couldn't take them. I didn't have the that kind of space in my teaching contract to take them. And I thought maybe I should open up a little school of Indian music, you know, just to exist for the students, all these students who were interested. And I asked Kansab about it. He said, yeah, it's a good idea. You should call it the Ali Akbar College. And I had a feeling I might get in trouble here. But what could I say? You know, I said yes, and I got into trouble. I got into a lot of trouble because this changed the relationship between Kansab and myself in important ways. It was no longer that I was just a student studying with him, but I was representing him in this enterprise of a school. And suddenly, his expectations of me as an organizer, you know, as someone to do things according to his wishes, just went sky high. And I thought, oh my goodness. And sometimes he would give me such a firing, you know, because you know, some things went wrong. I didn't have the experience, and he just he fried me, and everybody in the room was watching, you know, and they were watching me melt. And I said, okay, I think I'm going to go jump off the bridge over the river that crosses Basel. He said, no, don't do like that. He said, I'm telling you these things because I love you. So, but you have to do better. You have to do better. So this was part of the initiation and trial by fire with the guru.
Yeah. So now, as a teacher, what do you think are the most important qualities that a student of Indian classical music or Sarod should possess?
Well, as my teacher, as Kansab insisted when he taught us, and that was that you don't just learn the Sarod or the sitar. He said, if you don't learn singing, I'm not interested in you. Singing is so much a part of the fiber and structure of how we learn Indian music. In my Gharana, what he learned from his father, that he said, this everyone has to. I don't care if you're playing sitar, sarod, or kazoo. You have to learn how to sing, also, and that was just a pleasure for me because I always loved to sing. But some people don't, you know, they don't have that feeling about singing. They weren't brought up that way or something. But this is rule number one for me, because these songs, it's not this. You're not training, just your throat. You don't have to be a great singer, but these songs teach you the fabric of Indian music and how to express it. And if you want to understand really how to hold a mean, the sliding notes that we play on the sarod, you have to know how to do that vocally, because that's all imitations of vocal music. So this is the key to playing an instrument, and there are many players out there who play instruments like the sarod and sitar, and they don't sing, and they're missing something. So that's Kansav insisted on it. He said, when you're playing the sarod, actually, you're singing inside.
Lovely. Awesome. Now, in this fast-changing world, what do you think are the challenges in preserving the purity of Indian classical music?
What are the challenges?
Yeah. Do you see any?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges out there. There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's everything that is stealing the attention. I mean, all you need to learn Indian music, you can do it in a barn. It doesn't have to be a fine structure. All you need is to sit with a teacher, but you can't sit there with your smartphone. Because the smartphone is a misnomer. It's not smart. It's just a digital, a digital assistant. But if you want to learn music, you have to learn that with your voice and your ears. You have to. And that's why I told you in the beginning when Kansav would say, "Listen louder, please." Yeah.
Lovely. How nice. Is there anything that excites you that is upcoming in the future for this music, or you think there should be some changes in the way Indian music has been approached across the world?
Well, one thing that I feel really inspired about for the future is that in Basel, and that's where I've been working for so long, and I couldn't do that when I started teaching and for years, but my students, some of them are excellent teachers of children, and they've started teaching kids Indian music with incredible results. Their kids have been winning contests. I see these little kids playing sarod that are just astonishing. I said, there's a future for this, and I couldn't manage it. I didn't have the time, and also I was a little bit far away from such little kids. But we had one coming, and I was so busy at the seminar. But there was this little kid, and his father just wanted him to play sarod, and he says, I sat down and said, "Okay, put your finger here," and immediately I called my daughter. I said, "Would you please do this with him?" and she got him started. And then another one of my students began teaching him. This little kid had come to the school with his father when he was 6, and I said, "Look, his father really wanted him to learn Indian music. They were local. They were Indians living in Basel, working in the IT sector, and he wanted this. And so I told him, I said, he's too young. I mean, you need some more dexterity to be able to hold an instrument. I tell you what, you come to the vocal classes, because we have vocal classes every week, and you can both come." And so for almost 2 years, he came with his father every week, and they sat together like some little cartoon characters, and his father took notes, and the kid was looking, no, not like that. And they learned, and then the next time they went to Calcutta, they came back with 2 sarods, a little kid sarod and a full-size sarod. And so he started, and then my student started working with him, and after about a year, she came back to me. She said, "Ken, this little kid is really good. Father's hopeless, but but the kid is good. So she said, I think you should teach him. I said, okay, so bring him to me. So then I started teaching to him. And now he's 20 years old, and he's a fantastic sarod player. So this is what can happen. You know, you don't have to be in India to make that kind of thing happen, but you need dedicated teachers and good parents.
How nice, lovely. So we are coming to the end of the interview. Is there any question that is not asked to you a lot, but you really want to talk about? Is there something?
Boy, oh boy. Anupam, you're giving me a full run tonight. Question that nobody's asked me about, but I really want to talk about. Well, maybe it's not spoken about too much, but the last thing that I spoke about here, and it's has to do with the kids, is that they're the future. And as parents and teachers, we always have to remember that. So that's what I want to talk about. You know, I want to tell these stories because it doesn't matter where you are. If you're in India, it doesn't mean you know, in Switzerland or in America. All it takes is you know, parents who want their kids to learn and teachers who enjoy teaching.
How nice, lovely. And the last question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave when it comes to Ken Zuckerman? In the form of students, people?
Well, I work every day just for that, because I feel this music should go on, and I can only do it up to some point. It's not going to be something that I can continue forever. I'll do it as long as I can, and I see there's a transmission that's taking place with my students. I am officially retired from the Music Academy of Basel. This was a no-choice operation. You get to be a certain age. They want to make room for new teachers because they're also concerned about the future. So they canned me, and but I still teach at the Ali Akbar College. I have students, and I work with my best students for them to continue with their students, and that's I think this music knows no necessary age limits. You do it, you know, up to your final breath.
Wow, lovely. So, end of the tough question session. Thank you so much for this, and just to say that this conversation is, of course, a tip of the iceberg, and we've been speaking to each other for the past 20 years now, 20 plus years, and there are so many other insightful things I've heard from him, and maybe we can have such kind of a chat with him sometime soon, maybe next year again. Would you like to conclude by playing us a number?
So there's such a fascinating story that goes with the creation of this raga, Chandranandan, which became a favorite of music lovers all over the world after Kansab came out with it, quite by surprise. And it was a sort of, what do you call it, immaculate conception. The story is that he was doing a live broadcast. I think it was in I'm not sure which radio station it is now. It might have been Jodhpur, but the station director, before this broadcast began, he just said, Kansab, could you please play something that you've never played before in your life? And so Kansab thought, well, I don't know, but let's see. And I think the station manager must have known that Kansab had the potential to do something like that if challenged. And so he came out with the raga that later became known as Chandranandan. And when they finished the broadcast, the station was immediately flooded with telephone calls saying, "What was this amazing raga? We have to know what it is. Where can we find it?" And station manager asked Kansab, "So what is that raga?" Kansab said, "I don't know. You told me to just play something that I'd never played before, so I did it. Now I don't know what it is." And so he said, "What?" And the station manager says, "Well, think about it, please." And so they went outside, and I think he was smoking a cigarette, and he looked up and he saw it was a full moon, and so he said, "Let's call it Chandranandan." But the other part of the story is that the next day he had forgotten the whole thing. And he had to go back and listen to the recording of the broadcast to find out what it was, and then to the point that he could build it into a raga. But the first statement was just one of utter inspiration and creativity. So it was just another indication of how special he was. And it became a favorite of many people all over the world and his students. As soon as I heard that raga, I thought, "Oh my God, this is tremendous." So I play it sometimes.